In this video, we're going to take the vectors we created in the first section of this tutorial and build the model that you can see on the screen. Going to start with the 2-rail sweep tool to make our basic moulding. Then we're going to use Create Shape for the leaf, the Extrude tool for the stalk. We'll make a copy of those components in order to make the smaller leaf and crop away the area we don't need. Then we're going to mirror those components across the center of the part to create the symmetrical design that you can see, before finally looking at how we can create a smooth underlying shape for our decorative element so that it doesn't transmit the creases through from the original moulding profile. Let's go into a copy of the software now. If you've just worked through the vector drawing part of this tutorial, then you should have a set of vectors that look like the ones on the screen. If not, then you'll need to open this file, come over to File, Open, and from the project folder for this example, select the file leafmouldingvectors.crv3d and hit the Open button, and then you'll see the same set of vectors that I can here. So we can see both the 2D and 3D view. Let's come up and click on the icon to tile the windows horizontal so the 2D view at the top and the 3D view is at the bottom. Next we're going to come down to the Modeling tab. The first component I want to create is our basic moulding shape. I'm going to use the 2-rail sweep function, so I'm going to click on the icon there. I'm going to select the vector at the very top here, hold Shift down and select the vector at the very bottom and click on the Use Selection button. Next I'm going to select this cross section and I'm going to click on this node here to assign that cross section there, so we can see that the red node here is being hung on the red node here as this is being swept along. I'm going to uncheck Scale Cross Sections with Width. I want to keep it just as it is in terms of its height. Sweep Between Spans we can leave checked. Make sure Scale to Exact Height is unchecked. Combine Mode I'm going to leave set to Add, and we'll call this Basic Moulding and hit Apply. Now we can see, if we just click on the ISO view and zoom out a little in the 3D view, how that shape looks. There is our cross section at the side here being swept along those two straight lines. If I'm happy with that, I can hit Close on the 2-rail sweep form, and for the moment I'm just going to undraw that and then we'll come back to it later. So let's just uncheck the basic moulding component there. Let's go back to looking down the Z-axis here in the 3D view. Next we'll work on the components for the leaf. So I'm going to select this vector that represents the bottom half. I'm going to click on the icon for Create Shape from Vectors. And then here I'm going to choose the round profile. I'm going to set the angle around 70 degrees. And you can see that's very high. I want it to have this kind of roundness, but I need it to flatten off a bit. So I'm going to choose the option to Scale to Height. I'm going to ask the software to scale this to a height of 0.15 inches and hit the space bar to apply that. I'm going to set this component to merge with the other components for the leaf, and we'll call it Leaf 1, and then I'm going to click on the button to start a new component. Next I'm going to select the vector for the inner part of the leaf here. I'm going to reduce the angle down for this to around about 50 degrees. I'm going to set the scale to height to be 0.1 and choose the option to subtract to dish out this shape. I can see 0.1 may even be a little bit high, so I'm going to set that to 0.08. We'll call this Leaf 2. Hit Apply, and then I'm going to click on the button to start new component again. Now I'm going to select this vector here. I'm going to put this back up to around about 70 degrees. Scale to Exact Height 0.15, and I'm going to set this to merge, and we'll call this Leaf 3, hit Apply and Close. Now those three components I've just created could effectively be treated as a single object. So what I'm going to do is select the top one, Shift and select the bottom one, and I'm just going to click on the icon to group them together so that we've got a single group of components that I could use and work with. Now we're ready to model a stalk, so I'm just going to deselect by clicking in the white space, select this vector, come up and click on the icon to extrude a shape, and then I'm going to click on the button to use selection, so that becomes our drive rail. Next I'm going to select the large round cross section here and click on the end node in order to assign that to my drive rail. That's now assigned at both the start and the end, and then what I want to do is just zoom in here. I'm using the mouse. I'm going to select the small round cross section here, zoom out again, and then click on this node at the end to assign it there. So now we're going to create an extrusion going from the large round cross section to the small round cross section at the end here. I'm going to leave these options checked. I have no square corners, so that won't affect anything. Sweep between spans is fine. I want to make sure weave is unchecked, scale to height is unchecked. I'm going to set this to merge because I want it to merge with the leaf, and type in the component name stalk and hit apply. Now we can see we're going all the way from the large to the thin there, and that looks quite nice, but I think I'd like the large cross section to be maintained a little bit longer along my curve here. I also think I'd like the curve to come a little bit further down and around here as well. So what I'm going to do is just click in the 2D view. I'm going to hit F on the keyboard to fit, and then I'm going to hit N on the keyboard to go into node editing. I'm going to select my curve, and I'm just going to drag this node down a little here. Just drag that up there, drag that down and around there. Then I'm going to click on the button to reselect rails and hit apply so we can see how that's changed the design. And then I'm going to select my large cross section again here, the large round one, and click around this position here, and that's going to maintain that cross section all the way to there, and then it will taper down to the end of the stalk. So let's hit apply in order to change that. And there we can see how that has adjusted our design so that it's maintaining this so that it's a bit thicker along before it curves up and around into here. Again, if I want to, I could just click in the 2D view, hit N to go into node editing, come into here and just adjust my stalk a little there, and then reapply that in order to change the curvature there as well. Basically, I can just keep making edits to this until I'm happy with the way it looks. One additional change I may want to make if I zoom in here is I can see that the stalk is going all the way almost past the tip of the point there of my leaf. So again, if I click in the 2D view, I can just use the mouse wheel to zoom in, and I can actually click and just drag that to back it off a little and then hit apply in order to change its location. So you can see we don't have to go all the way to the end if we readjust the positions for the cross sections on our extruded shape. Let's just now click in the 2D view and hit F to fit that. We'll click on the down Z view again in the 3D view. If I'm happy with the shape there, then we can go ahead and hit close to create that component. Now I'd like to make a smaller copy of these two components. So I'm going to select the grayscale of the stalk, hold shift down and select the grayscale for the leaf. Click on them again to go into transform mode. I'm going to hold the control key down on the keyboard and click on the top left hand corner, the white node here, click and drag. By holding control down, I'm going to make a copy of both of those two components. Next I'm going to click on rotate and just rotate that round, and then I'm going to click and just drag that over into the center here. And what I want to do is just get that to come in so that it's kind of merging in and filling in the space here. So I want that just to be coming into the stalk here. So zoom in the 3D view, make sure we click in there and just joining into there around that position. So that looks pretty much where I want that to be. Happy with that. But what I want to do is just trim off the excess here. I don't want this part of the stalk coming past here. So I'm going to click on the drawing tab. I'm going to click on the draw polyline tool. I'm just going to sketch across here and down and around here. Just close that off, right mouse click to accept it. Then I'm going to select these two components here, and I'm going to select the vector as the last option here. We'll come back to the modeling tab. I'm going to choose the option to clear area of the selected components inside the selected vector, so basically inside the last thing we selected. When I click on this, the software is going to tell me it wants to bake those two components together, which is fine. So I'm going to hit OK, and there we can see now that's just baked those into a single component, and it's cropped away the area that was inside this vector here. I'm going to select this vector now and hit delete on the keyboard to get rid of it. Next, I'm just going to make a small edit to the height of the stalk here. That's the most prominent object we've got at the moment. I'd just like to select that, click on the icon here to change the properties. I'm going to edit the height of that to be 0.15 and hit the spacebar to accept that, just to scale that down so we know it's the same height of the components in the leaf here. Then what I'm going to do is select this component here. I'm going to hold shift down and select this component here, and I want to make a copy of this mirrored about the middle of the part, both horizontally and then vertically. So I'm going to come over with all those three components and the component group selected, click on mirror selected copies. I'm going to make sure flip about job center is checked and create a mirrored copy is checked, and I'm going to click on flip horizontal. Now I'm going to uncheck create a mirrored copy because I just want to flip that copy about the center vertically, and have flip about job center still checked, and click on the button to flip vertical. And we can see, because we positioned our starting point in the center here for our extrude, this is now smoothly flowing between the middle of the part and creating a nice symmetrical design. If we hit close now, we can actually select all those components, everything except the basic molding, and click on the icon to group selected objects together, right mouse click, rename that, and I'm going to call that leaf group, and then click in order to accept that. To finish the leaf decoration off, I'd like to raise it up a little and then smooth all the components together. When I smooth them, the software is going to require me to bake them into a single object, but I would like to keep a safe copy where I've got all the individual components in case I wanted to come back and edit them at a later date. Now I could make a duplicate here in the program itself, or another way to keep a safe copy is to export this as a 3D clip file, which will retain the individual parts of a component group if I was to import them into another session of Aspire. To do that, we just take a single component or a component group, right mouse click on it, and choose the option to export as 3D clip art. I'm going to save this in the project folder, and we'll just call it leafgroup.3dclip. So if you wanted to, you can actually import that into your session of Aspire and have this same set of components that I've created here. Let's go ahead and hit save. So now we know we have a safe copy if we needed to get back to that. So with this, what I'm going to do is select it. I'm going to click on the properties icon, and I'm going to adjust the shape height here to be exactly 0.15 and add a base height to this of 0.03 and hit the spacebar. So that's just going to put a small vertical edge all the way around all of those components. Now I'm going to hit close. I'm going to click on the icon to smooth everything. Software tells me it's going to bake these together. That's going to make a single component, so I can't get back to the individual entities anymore once I do this. And I'm going to come in here and we'll just set this around about halfway and go ahead and hit OK. Make sure preserve transparency is checked here and then hit OK. So I'm happy with the way that looks. Now what I want to do is think about how we can combine that to get it to flow over the top of our basic molding shape. If we switch on the molding component, we can see how those two are being added together. And that looks fine, apart from the areas where we've got these heavy creases which are being transmitted through into the leaves as well. So what we need to do is create a shape that the leaves can go on, which is smooth but still quite closely follows the profile of the moulding vector. To do that, I'm going to sketch another vector over the top of our moulding vector, but just make sure that that stays slightly outside of this vector and is a completely smooth shape. So let's maximize the 2D view. Let's just click to jog over, and we'll just zoom in here on this profile. I'm going to click on the drawing tab, and I'm going to click on draw polyline, and I'm going to snap to this point, snap to this point, snap to this point, and snap to this point here. Then I'm going to right mouse click to accept that. I'm going to hit N on the keyboard to go into node editing, and I'm going to turn this into a Bezier span. I'm going to hit B on the keyboard. I'm just going to click and grab this handle and drag it up here and get it so that it comes far enough to go past the end there. We'll do the same with this handle. Just click and drag that up there so that it comes past the end there. Now I can see if we use that shape, that's going to add an awful lot of thickness to my design. So what I want to do is add some other points in here. Let me come and click I on the keyboard to insert a point and drag this down so that it's just slightly above the point here. Then we'll just move that around there. And again, I just want to make sure this line comes over the top here, past this, still remaining outside of my curve here, and then I can come into here, hit insert a point and just drop that down a little there. We may just adjust the curvature of that. So again, that's still coming up and out and around past this curve here. So that should be a fairly smooth curve that we've generated there. Now going to click on the selection mode here. Click back on the modeling tab. We'll tile the windows so we can see the 2D and the 3D view. Now we're just going to switch off our two components while we create our new 2-rail sweep shape. So I'm going to uncheck the component tree there. I'm going to come up and click on the icon for 2-rail sweep. I'm going to select the straight vector we've got at the very top of our design, hold shift down and select the vector at the bottom and click on the button to use selection. And this time I'm going to select this new vector that we drew, this smooth version that we created here. And I'm going to make sure the combine mode is set to add, and we'll call that smooth shape and hit apply. And now in the 3D view we can see the shape that's going to create. There's that cross section that we just sketched there being swept along our two straight lines. I'm happy with that. I can hit close. Now if I switch on the leaf group, we can see how that's just going to add on top of that smooth shape there. Now I need to be able to see the moulding shape underneath this though, so I want to be able to crop this shape back so that it's only under the area where the leaves are. At the moment we can see it's kind of hard to select because the most recent shape we've created, the grayscale for that, is prominent in the 2D view. So I'm going to select that here, right mouse click and choose the option to move to back. So that will reorder the grayscale so that now that one is in the back and the leaf is in the front. I'm just going to click where there's nothing to deselect and make sure I get the selection order correct. I want to click to select the smooth shape component, hold shift down and then click and select our leaf group, and then I'm going to choose the icon here to clear the area of the first component outside the area of the second. So it's going to crop that back so that we've only got the smooth shape under the area of the leaves. So let's click on that. We can see the changes been made there. If we look around, maybe click switch off the leaf group and you can see the combination of those two. Now what we want to do is merge in our original moulding shape with these. If I just switch it on where it is in the component tree at the moment, then all these are going to add together. What we want to do is have these two components add together and then to have this merge with them. So I'm going to move this to the bottom of the list. I could either drag it down or I could use the arrow. So if I click to move that to the bottom of the list there, and then I'm going to set the combine mode for this to merge. I'm going to right mouse click, go to combine mode and choose the option to merge. And now we can see what's happening. If we switch off all the components, let's just maximize the 3D view. We've got our leaf group being added to the smooth shape, which is just around the area of the leaf group in order to raise it up and give it the rough profile of our moulding. And then merging in with that is our original moulding shape. So what we end up with is the leaf there following the shape of the moulding but not transmitting those creases through. So essentially what we've done is we've created a smooth underlying shape in order to eliminate those creases. So at this stage let's go ahead and save the file. Go up to File, Save As, and we'll call this Leaf Moulding Model. Hit the Save button there. And that pretty much concludes this part of the tutorial. Before we finish, let's just go ahead and summarize some of the things we've looked at. We started with the vectors we'd created in the first section of this example. We then use the 2-rail sweep tool in order to make our basic moulding shape, create shape to build the leaf, and the extrude function in order to make our stalk. We then took a copy of the leaf and stalk and made the smaller version of the leaf and cropped out the area we didn't need before mirroring that whole part across the centre of the job in order to create the symmetrical design that we can see on the example. Finally, we looked at how we could add the leaf decoration to a moulding profile without the creases being transmitted through the design. To do this, we sketched a new cross-section using the vector drawing tools that was a smoother version but still roughly corresponded to the shape of the original one. We then created a new 2-rail sweep, swept shape, and then cropped that back to the outline of the leaf and used that as an underlying shape for the leaf to sit on top of, so that when we merged in the original moulding profile, the part looked correct. In the companion tutorial to this, we'll look at how to take the components we've created and make a longer section of moulding, and also how to take those and create an arched version of this design. And that concludes this video.